The events of September 11th did not only shake the United States, they altered the lives of millions of Muslims across the globe. Even today, the questions from that morning linger sharp and unsettling, like smoke that refuses to clear. How could the world's most powerful nation find itself so unprepared? And an even more difficult question follows. If you had been aboard one of the 4 planes that day, yes, there were 4, what would you have done? Stay with me, because we are about to examine both the established facts and the lesser-known layers of the story. On one side stood the United States, the sole global superpower after the Soviet Union collapsed. Opposing it was Osama bin Laden, a Saudi millionaire who would soon become the most hunted individual on the planet. September 11th, 2001 began as a routine morning. In New York City, people poured into subway stations, grabbed their first coffee of the day, hurried through intersections, and breathed in the warm end of summer air. The World Trade Center was not chosen at random. These towers were once the tallest in the world, and had appeared in more than 500 Hollywood productions. Striking them would ensure global attention.
A plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
According to U.S. investigations, the 19 hijackers originated from Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. They had prepared for years. Each group of 5 boarded its assigned plane with a single, straightforward, and devastating mission. American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767, departed Boston Logan International Airport at 7:59 a.m. Its destination was Los Angeles, carrying 92 people in total, 76 passengers, 11 crew members, and 5 hijackers, who would turn the aircraft into a weapon. Loaded with fuel for a cross-country journey, the plane had the destructive potential the attackers were looking for. As noted in the 9/11 Commission report, the hijackers intentionally selected long-distance flights using larger aircraft with full fuel tanks to maximize the impact of their mission. About 15 minutes after takeoff around 8:14 a.m., Flight 11 stopped responding to air traffic control. Shortly after, its transponder, which identifies the aircraft and relays altitude information, was switched off. By then, the cockpit had been seized by force. 2 flight attendants were stabbed, and the front cabins descended into chaos. Yet even in the middle of the assault, 2 women documented what was happening with extraordinary clarity. Flight attendant Betty Ong used an airphone to reach an American Airlines reservations agent. For more than 23 minutes, she delivered a steady, haunting account.
The cockpit's not answering. Somebody's stabbed in business class. And I think there's mace that we can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked.
Beside her, flight attendant Amy Sweeney made another critical call, providing the exact seat numbers of the hijackers' information that later enabled investigators to identify every member of the attack team.
We've been hijacked. They have knives and meat. Can you look out the window and tell us where you are? Do you recognize anything?
Amy, do you know you're headed toward Kennedy?
I see water, buildings. We're flying low. We're flying very, very low. We are flying way too low.
At the controls was Mohammed Atta, an Egyptian national and trained pilot. He made a broadcast from the cockpit at 8:24 a.m. The message was intended for the passengers, but was instead transmitted to air traffic control.
We have some planes, just stay quiet and we'll be okay. We're ready to the airport.
He had no intention of landing. After securing the cockpit, Atta directed Flight 11 south, steering toward New York City. At 8:21 a.m., he disabled the transponder, erasing the aircraft's identifying data from radar and leaving controllers with only an indistinct primary signal. The North Tower of the World Trade Center rose 1,368 feet, a steel and glass monument dominating the skyline. At 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 struck the tower at approximately 466 miles per hour, tearing into the building between the 93rd and 99th floors. The impact obliterated 5 floors instantly and severed all 3 emergency stairwells. Anyone above the crash zone had no path to escape. More than 300 people were trapped between the 93rd and 110th floors. Some called their families. Others stood by shattered windows as flames advanced. Temperatures inside surpassed 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to weaken steel and turn stairwells into infernos. In their final moments, some made the unbearable choice to jump. But the world did not yet understand what no one imagined at 8:46 a.m. was that Flight 11 was only the beginning. 3 more hijacked aircraft were still in the sky. The first crash was only the beginning. Less than 20 minutes later, the second attack unfolded live on television. United Airlines Flight 175 took off from Boston at 8:14 a.m., heading to Los Angeles with 65 people on board, 51 passengers, 2 pilots, 7 flight attendants, and 5 hijackers. By 8:42 a.m., the cockpit had been violently taken. Flight attendants were stabbed and passengers forced to the back. Hijacker pilot Marwan al-Shehi turned the plane south, descending sharply toward New York. Radar data captured its steep turn over New Jersey. 2 F-15s launched from Otis Air National Guard Base were still 70 miles away and not authorized to engage. At 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 struck the South Tower between the 77th and 85th floors. One wing penetrated deep into the tower, the other vaporized on impact. A massive fuel-driven fireball erupted. Because the South Tower was hit at a lower level than the North Tower, far more weight pressed down on the weakened floors. Engineers later confirmed that heat between 1,000 and 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit weakened the trusses, causing a progressive collapse. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower fell just 56 minutes after impact. At 9:05 a.m., in a Florida classroom, President George W. Bush was informed. A second plane hit the second tower. America is under attack. He stayed seated to avoid alarming the children while he processed the scale of the attack.
I didn't want to do anything dramatic. Here, the classroom full of children, and so I waited.
U.S. airspace was shut down at 9:45 a.m., the first time in history. Stock exchanges closed for nearly a week, the longest shutdown since 1933. At 5:22 p.m., World Trade Center 7 collapsed, bringing down the city's emergency command center. The tower's destruction pulverized concrete, glass, steel, paper, electronics, and human remains into a dense dust cloud that covered New York for months. American Airlines Flight 77 departed Washington Dulles at 8:20 a.m. en route to Los Angeles with 64 people on board, including 5 hijackers. The aircraft was a Boeing 757, 155 feet long, with a wingspan wide enough to cover a 4-lane highway. At 8:56 a.m., while over eastern Kentucky, its transponder was switched off, cutting altitude and ID data to controllers. With 2 planes already striking the World Trade Center, the nation was entering crisis. But no one yet knew Flight 77 had turned back toward Washington. Hijacker pilot Hani Hanjour executed a steep 330-degree descending turn, dropping more than 2,000 feet per minute. He leveled off just above the ground, skimming past traffic before slamming into the Pentagon at 530 miles per hour. The left wing clipped a generator. The right wing tore through 3 rings of the building. The jet fuel ignited in a massive explosion. A total of 184 people were killed, 59 passengers and crew, and 125 people inside the Pentagon. For hours, America braced for further attacks, uncertain how many more planes were hijacked. The 4th plane unfolded differently, because the passengers fought back. United Airlines Flight 93 was scheduled to leave Newark at 8 a.m. for San Francisco, but was delayed until 8:42 a.m. On board were 44 people, 37 passengers, including the 4 hijackers and 7 crew members. By the time hijackers acted, passengers already knew about the attacks in New York and at the Pentagon. At 9:28 a.m., hijackers stormed the cockpit over eastern Ohio. The plane dropped 685 feet in 30 seconds. Air traffic control heard fragments of distress calls, then a hijacker announcing control. The aircraft turned southeast toward Washington. Experts believe its target was either the U.S. Capitol or the White House. Passengers made calls, shared information, and formed a plan. At 9:57 a.m., they rushed the cockpit. Hijacker pilot Ziad Jarrah rolled the plane violently to throw them off. At 10:02 a.m., a hijacker asked,
"Is that it? Shall we finish it off?"
At 10:03 a.m., the plane crashed upside down in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, at 563 miles per hour, leaving a 40-foot wide, 15-foot deep crater. Nothing recognizable survived. Families of some suspected hijackers denied involvement.
يحدث هذا الموضوع إلا الموساد.
Islamic scholars worldwide condemned the attacks as un-Islamic. New York remained dust-covered for months. Cleanup costs exceeded $1 billion. The U.S. economy lost an estimated $1.4 trillion. The U.S. demanded the Taliban hand over Osama bin Laden. When they refused without proof, the U.S. invaded Afghanistan in 2001, removed the Taliban, and installed a new government that struggled with corruption. Bin Laden later admitted responsibility. In 2011, U.S. forces found him in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Navy SEALs flew in from Afghanistan, raided the compound, and killed him. History does not repeat itself, but it always leaves a lesson. This is one story among many threads of forgotten moments and hidden histories. Which one will you explore next? Don't forget to subscribe Hist X Moves for more videos.